talk about the Las Vegas Raiders. I know that the most exciting thing, the most interesting thing to people all offseason has been who is the quarterback going to be for this team. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We have some interesting news from a former Las Vegas Raiders quarterback who has some insight on one guy in particular in this quarterback competition. Let's get into the article and talk more about it on the other side. This is, of course, from NBC Sports. It says, Brian Hoyer had a front row seat to fellow quarterback Aidan O'Connell's rookie year with the Raiders in 2023. Serving as a backup or third quarterback for most of the year, the Raiders did not retain Hoyer for 2024, moving on to a quarterback room led by O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. But during a recent guest host sitting on Sirius XM NFL radio, Hoyer shared his impressions of young quarterback as the Purdue product readies for a training camp battle to be Las Vegas's QB1. Being there firsthand and watching Aidan grow, I remember him saying at the end of the year, I never thought this is how this year would play out, Hoyer said. At the beginning of the year, he was third on the depth chart, and then he ended up finishing the entire year, and I thought to see his growth and what he was able to do as a fourth-round pick was tremendous. Nick, I think this is great because Brian Hoyer has been around the NFL, so many different teams. Forget praise from a guy like Brian Hoyer. Really great and exciting for Raiders fans. Curious what your thoughts on this one are, but before we get to you, Nick, Raiders fans, in the comment section below, this has been a close, hotly contested quarterback battle. Both of these guys in their own right are deserving, I would say, probably of a starting spot somewhere in this league. But at the end of the day, I think the tables, personally, are leaned in one direction in particular, and that is towards Aidan O'Connell. I wonder if you, the Raiders fans, agree, or do you think Gardner Minshew is the favorite to win this quarterback competition? Let us know who you think is the favorite here in the comment section below. And while you're down there, check out our list of recommended NFL books in the description below the video. We have some great ones, even one about Raiders legendary coach John Madden down there as well. So check out our recommended NFL reading in the description below the video as well. But Nick, what are your thoughts on Brian Hoyer's comments?
I think it's obviously a great sign for Aidan O'Connell being not just the QB1 for the Raiders going forward, but a quality, potentially franchise caliber QB1 for the Raiders going forward. And we talk about it all the time on this channel. We look for what we call corroborating evidence, right? We want to see multiple sources across different spectrums to come up with a direction of what is actually happening. So what does that mean? It means, hey, does a pundit report something? And then does the coach of a team say the same thing? And does a player on the team say the same thing? And that's all what we call corroborating evidence to support that that's actually what's going on. Because obviously individual pundits, individual reporters, coaches, players, they all have their own agendas. But if you can corroborate the whole image here, you can get a real indication of what's actually going on. And we've seen and heard a lot involving O'Connell this offseason, whether it's the Raiders coaching staff being really impressed with him, whether it's Raiders players like Crosby, like Adams, the leadership saying, hey, we really like him as well, whether it's reporters talking about it. There's been a lot of momentum to Aidan O'Connell, and one of the final pieces to the puzzle was, is there a quarterback that is really impressed by Aidan O'Connell? And now we've got one of Brian Hoyer, a guy who is famously known for being Tom Brady's preferred backup for so many years, a big believer in everything Brady brings to the fold, including leadership, mental acumen, two critical components, obviously, to being an elite NFL quarterback. And Hoyer went on to say some other very good things about O'Connell as well. He said, I think what Aidan did last year, I know he hasn't shown it as much as Gardner Minshew has throughout his career, but I know the guys really gravitated to the way Aidan took over and his leadership as a young player. Again, that's that corroborating evidence. We heard Crosby and Adams. We've heard the coaches say those similar things about O'Connell's leadership. Now we're saying Hoyer. Again, Hoyer has no dog in the fight. He doesn't play for the Raiders, right? His NFL career, for all intents and purposes, is finished. So the fact that Brian Hoyer is coming out and saying these things, I think is yet further proof and another indication that Aidan O'Connell is the leader the Raiders need and will be the QB1 going forward.
Yeah, Nick, and I think this is great news all around. I really like it's coming from a guy like Brian Hoyer that we said has been such a prevalent name, especially as a backup in this league. A guy that has really been around some of the greatest quarterbacks, and just saying things like, his leadership, his abilities, people really starting to gravitate towards him. I think those are the things that people as pundits, we as people in the media trying to say stuff, they can't ever know exactly what goes on inside of a locker room. And for Hoyer to come out and say some of these really important stuff, like what you brought up at the end, is that people are really, gravitating towards O'Connell. His leadership, he was able to kind of evolve as a young player and really branch out, And this is really impressive to me in the sense that we hear O'Connell's comments earlier on in the article saying he never thought this was the way that it shook out. So he kind of got put on the spot. He was given, a really great opportunity. He seized it. He took control of it, and he developed and grew as a player throughout as well. So I think he was given probably one of the toughest tasks a young rookie quarterback can have. He really took advantage of it and used it to his advantage. And now I think he's probably the favorite to be the starting quarterback of this team. But once again, I think this is really great news for Raiders fans because having a guy like Brian Hoyer, so knowledgeable, been around the league, been around so many great quarterbacks, for him to be impressed with O'Connell, I think speaks volumes. And again, goes to what you said. This is some great corroborating evidence from another source who doesn't necessarily have to sing O'Connell's praises.